Hey guys, Stealth here. Bonus video for today because I had some extra time. We're looking at Wonsan Harbour with the DLC 3 edition. So this is the DLC 3 beta. These sectors might still change, but the first thing that you need to know about them is that the command zones where you bring in your units are no longer over there and over here in Bravo, but they're now Hotel and Alpha. So these are the reinforcement zones. You need to keep that in mind because it's going to impact the entire map. Means that the actual harbour in Delta is now the main combat zone, along with, of course, Charlie and Foxtrot, but they already were usually heavily contested zones. Now it's a conquest map, so we need to capture this terrain as quickly as possible, and since it is a urban map, I'm going to use a lot of infantry. So for that I picked my Kim Jong-un deck, so a lot of North Korean mechanized infantry is going to be roaming through this town. I'm here with my ally Thijs. I was not with him on TeamSpeak, so we're just coordinating through chat and through looking at the map and using beacons. I'm going to be operating mostly in Charlie, Delta and Foxtrot, and he's going to be operating in Echo. Now this game is going to be focusing mostly on him because he, after the game, asked me for some pointers to see what he could do better. So here it is. And at the same time we're going to have a look at how this new gameplay or how the new command zones impact this game. Because the map has been changed a little bit and you're going to see that change reflected in how the game performs. Now he's using, don't pay attention to my units, they're cluttering the field. He's using a couple of T-55s, Tunguska, more T-55s, some BMD-3s. He's using these in groups of two units, to make sure that you don't get one large infantry group. Really, in a map like this you want to have infantry pretty much in all of these blocks, instead of having one large group of 4 in there, for example. It doesn't really have any use. It's only a bigger artillery target or a target for a bomber. Now I think that with this setup he has too many tanks, because tanks need range, they need an open field. This, for example, would be a decent engagement range for a tank. If you have a tank that sits in here and it's engaging a target over there, it's too short a range because infantry can get the jump on him and you're going to lose your vehicle, so we don't want that to happen. Now I immediately start to push my units into this area. My other units are going to go this area and over there, and especially the CVs early on are important because it gives you a nice head start. With that head start you're going to dissuade the enemies. I found if you see that you're at a disadvantage already, people start panicking and then they start making mistakes, so getting a couple of those points early on really helps. I was using command infantry for that. He unfortunately didn't have any, so he's using a BRDM-2U to push into Elena. And with that there's a lot of infantry at Tunguska and the T-55s. I believe I also saw one unit carrying reconnaissance. Yeah, the MT LBV, carrying a Spetsnaz group probably. I'm not sure which type yet. Or it might just be simple Razvedkas, I'm not sure. I capture this area, making sure that at least we have a +1 head start. And the enemy, it seems, was not that experienced, so this map, at the same time, this match gave me the opportunity to have a look at the map, because I hadn't played Wonsan Harbour with the new setup yet. Now, he's pushing all of his vehicles to the right, I believe, except for the command vehicle, which is a good choice. The thing has to go all the way around, unless you're going to dive into the forest right here. That's another possibility. Command infantry over here would be nice, but unfortunately he didn't have any in his deck. So we're just going to have to make do with what we have. This was an extremely high endpoint game, by the way. I had a +14 income. So with that I could bring in a lot of units, and you're going to see a steady flow of my units come in. And I think that Thijs didn't really bring in enough units, and that caused his sector to suffer, because he didn't have a high variety of units. Whereas I had AA, I had napalm artillery, napalm infantry, I had my VTTs, or what's left of them, because some of them got taken out, with their AA missiles. And I had pretty much the same setup here with a napalm tank leading the charge, so that if I encounter a lot of infantry, I can napalm this area and make sure that the infantry is going to go down very quickly. Now you can see that these BMD-3s over here are too far back. They're not serving anyone here. And the infantry is much more required up here if the enemy decides to take this route and pushes into Elena, or if they come down this road and start to push onto this side. So the infantry here was out of position, and so were those tanks. These tanks were in a decent position, but they didn't have any spotters yet. They only have poor optics themselves, so they cannot see what's going on. And that is trouble, because you don't want to have tanks on the front line without any idea what's going on. Spetsnaz GRU manages to capture, or sorry, recon this area now, and it seems that Blue 4 has absolutely nothing in here. This BRDM is now sitting out of position. You want this thing in cover. Be it in that forest or this one, I don't care. Have it in cover. And they got a Harrier GR7 flying over, and he probably spotted that command vehicle, because here come the bombs. And that's what happens when you don't have your CV in cover. Now I'm curious as to what was spotting that, and probably this Gazelle AH1 from Speed. And with that we lost the +2 income that we had, or the +2 advantage if you will. And this is another reason why you don't want your tanks sitting on the front line. Another thing that he was missing here was not command infantry, although that would have been useful as well. He was missing AA infantry, and with that he could not defend himself against the Lynx. I was pushing up with my Iglas, but they were not going to be fast enough to save those tanks. And meanwhile, I'm engaging some SAS-R over here and some standard SAS. I'm engaging those from 2 flanks, and I got some special surprises coming in. First an F5, doing a napalm run. They see what's happening, and I'm going to quickly switch this to neutral view to see what happens, because I didn't really see. This is my main attack. I just wanted to flush those guys out of that building, and they went exactly where I wanted them to, so that the B5 can take them down with their 3,000 kilogram bomb. The B5 took some damage, but did not die, unlike some of these guys. SAS got wiped out, and the SAS-R lost about 10 guys. Thijs recognized that he needed to push up with the BMDs, and he's doing so right here. From this point on, I would start walking with my infantry, because you don't really know what's going to be in these buildings. And these Milans are just pounding the crap out of the BMD-3s, which are still carrying infantry. So he needs to offload the infantry before he loses them. Now we're going to see some bugs coming in, along with a new command vehicle, so we're going to recapture this area. And already we have a +2, because I also captured Dimitri here. So you can see that the battle, although you'd expect it to happen in Dimitri, doesn't really occur here. And that is mostly probably due to the low skill or inexperience of my opponents. Not so much due to the fact that it was difficult to get through here, because I did not have that many forces. They could have pushed here pretty easily and still wiped out everything here. Especially when my AA over here was bad. Anyway, we're going to switch back to Thijs and see what he's doing over his side. He has packed up his infantry, and the VDVs that were coming down this road are now engaging the SAS. The SAS are not going to win that, because they don't have a machine gun, whereas the VDVs do have a machine gun and an assault rifle. At the same time, I'm pushing up with recoilless rifles and with Gongbyong napalm infantry. So we're double teaming these guys and trying to get as many kills as we can before we have to retreat. I'm bringing in some new vehicles with more infantry, and there's pretty much a constant stream of vehicles coming up. But Thijs is not bringing in that many new units. He could have brought in artillery, he could have brought in a Buratino, he could have brought in infantry, AA infantry that is, to position, for example, in these buildings where they have a good line of sight on what's happening here. And with that you have a much more diverse army, because now he was relying purely on me for his AA, or at least his short-range AA. He does have the Bucks over here, but they have their radars turned off and they're out of position. If a bombing run comes in and goes for the Gongbyongs, so that's my infantry, he cannot help me. This would be a better position for the Bucks, because they're still protected by the buildings. You can see if I level down that the buildings are protecting this area from ATGMs. and still they can fire at the enemy because they're aiming upwards and not forwards. So that would have been a much better position for the Bucks. He's moving with some more VDVs, but it's all small groups, and he does not really have this sector locked down. Having a couple of concours or other ATGM infantry in here would have been very handy as well. And at this point I start putting some markers down to aid him in where I want him to send his infantry. So that's the infantry. And I put down a CV marker there, but he already brought a CV, so we got that area locked down. My Gongyongs are engaging some more infantry here. And I got these Iglas trying to take down the Lynx, but they managed to make it away. Now I believe that if Thijs had pushed with a lot more forces, so a lot more VDV, he could have easily helped me clear this town. Instead I had to do most of the heavy lifting with my Gongyongs and my Biban Chongpos, my recoilless rifles. And against Royal Marines, they don't really do that well, so I decided to retreat them a little bit. T-64B takes a lot of fire here from ATGMs, from those Milans. And unfortunately it dies, because it cannot get a shot on anything here. It cannot really do anything. So tanks are hopelessly out of position. You do not want to get into a town with tanks. His Bucks are now moving up, but if they get behind a building they're still going to be pretty ineffective. Because if you park your Buck, for example right here, next to this building, I'm going to disable the HUD for now. If you park it here, it's going to be looking at the building instead of covering the air. It's like you're pretty much facing a wall, and that means that you cannot shoot your Buck upwards. So you want to always have a couple of meters distance between yourself and the building to make sure that you can actually use those things. Now back to the VDVs and of course my infantry. I'm in the meanwhile engaging these guys with some of my VTT 323s, my artillery, and he's bringing in some more infantry and BMP-1s. Probably brought in 5 in one group of 4 and one group of 1, which is a bit weird. And unfortunately the Bucks miss the airplane, but my Iglas managed to take it down. We're still leading by a lot of points, 200 points, or 220 if you want to be precise. And still, he hasn't really brought in any infantry with AA launchers, or Spetsnaz, which would also be extremely effective in a town like this. Now I'm not sure what exactly spotted the TACOM, the command infantry in here, and I don't really care, but I just want to take it down, because they are now limiting my, or our, advantage to +2 instead of +3. So mortars are immediately pounding on this infantry. They start running, but not fast enough, and my mortars take them down. Better place for command infantry would be back here. Although it is predictable, it is still a decent position for them. He's bringing in some more units, a Buratino. I think he could have brought that in much earlier. With the Buratino we can lock down this area, or especially this one, the crossroads. This is the most important area of this command zone. If you can lock that down, you have a very decent chance of securing the area. In the meanwhile, I saw his Motostrelki push up this group of infantry. I put down a marker incoming heavy to let him know that there is a heavy bombing run coming in. This time with 2 B5s. You could say it's overkill, but I want to get this group of infantry out of the way. Unfortunately, I'm going to do a little bit of friendly fire and also hit his Motostrelkis. First bomb wiped about 12 of those Royal Marines off the map, and the other strike wiped out pretty much all of them except 1. So that is how effective those B1s, or sorry, the B5s are at clearing the area. And my B5s did not die in the process either. More VDVs are pushing up. Motostrelkis, when they're wounded like this, you want to retreat them. You want to get them back to a forward resupply zone, for example having an MI6 over there. And with that you can then heal them back up to full strength and then send them onto the front. As Bucks are being reloaded, or have been reloaded already, so our AA is doing okay. This area though is pretty much open right now, so more infantry AA again would be nice here, along with more standard infantry. A couple of motostrelkies in here would have been an early stopping force if those helicopters that they just shot down with the Tunguska would have managed to deploy the infantry. Just the Spetsnaz GRU is not enough. As you can see, we're very easily winning this round, so I'm not going to focus too much on the winning, but more on the tactics here. I have a napalm tank to napalm any infantry that happens to get close, although a napalm tank would be better suited at this range. If it could fire from about there, napalm these buildings, that would be a lot safer. Because pushing it up like I'm doing right here, between the buildings where it can get taken down by any kind of infantry would be... well, it's not suicidal, but it's very dangerous. I see that the infantry from speed is pushing up, the Royal Marines here. Thijs is also pushing up with some VDV and Motostrelki, and I do not want these Royal Marines to escape. So instead I accidentally miss them, because I can't hit them anyway, and napalm this building, so that they do not retreat to that side. The only way they can go is back. And that is when the napalm tank should be into position to actually engage those guys there. And they also get into position of my napalm, my napalm infantry, the Gongbyoungs. Now I flush them back out of this town, back over the road, and now my napalm tank is napalming this area as a precaution so that they don't come back here. At the same time, it's hiding behind its own firewall, quite literally. So with this, the tank cannot be targeted by ATGMs from the other side, and units can no longer shoot at each other, which also saved his Motostrelki. Or at least that was the idea. Chieftain Marksman engaging my Biban Chung Pos here. Not very effective shot by the recoilless rifles there. They did some damage, but it was not exactly lethal. Instead, they're getting chewed up extremely, and I'm probably going to lose those. I saw some more units coming in, and I set Buratino this place. I don't think that he got that, because his Buratino is going to do nothing for the rest of the match. And instead, I preemptively fire my mortars at this location, because I know that there is going to be infantry in here. This is where they have to offload. Because if they're going to offload much closer, we're going to see that. He's putting down attack markers, probably to mark infantry. And I'm putting down another marker incoming heavy, because I got my second strike of 2 B5s coming in. Let's see what exactly these guys are going to hit. Nothing, it turns out, but I didn't know that at the time. At least it's a bit of a notification that their AA is not that good, and that I can kill any kind of infantry that happens to come near. Royal Marines might be impressive if you fight them with other infantry, but against the B5 they're not that good. And you've seen me use these B5s in a combination of two. That was intentional to make sure that the B5s would take cover pretty much behind each other. I know that sounds strange, but the tactic was that artillery, AA, always spreads out their fire. It'll always try to hit both units, and with that you got pretty much a 30-point plane, or a 30-point unit. So that should keep my planes alive, and that actually worked as well. Now, a little bit of more pushing with Motostrelkis versus Royal Marines, and my napalm tank is helping them by napalming this area. So the Royal Marines get split up between these two buildings. And with that we also reach 500 points and end this conquest game in only 18 minutes. So that was the game. I did pretty well, but you can see that Thijs lost a couple of unnecessary units like the tanks. Don't push with tanks into forests and towns, because it's not the place for them to be. Nor are helicopters. You don't really use helicopters in urban areas like these. I found that using stuff like a mechanized or a motorized deck is best, because they can transport a lot of high veteran infantry, and they can capture those buildings a lot better than, for example, an armored deck or a deck which relies heavily on airborne troops. Still, airborne could work, so long as you drop off your infantry well outside the range of the enemy AA, and that is something that is not that easy in an urban setting. So, short video, short game. I hope you liked it. I hope you got a new idea of what the new Wonsan Harbour is like. And that Thijs, if you're watching this, you got some more pointers out of it on how to do urban warfare, or at least the way I play urban warfare. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.